What's up, guys? Welcome into a brand new episode of Chargers Weekly. As always, joined by Matt Money Smith. It is game week, preseason game number 1 on Saturday against the Seattle Seahawks. We got a great pod ahead. Coming up a little bit later, Money and myself caught up with the Pardon My Take guys. Big Cat and PFT Commenter. We're at camp for Grit Week, and of course they had Jim Harbaugh on. And if you haven't listened to that interview, Money, it was pretty good. It was very entertaining. We were the first unofficial interview of Grit Week on Chargers Weekly, though.
Yeah, so if you like those guys, and we love them, they're great. They love Harbaugh, and it was great to see them and catch up with them. They're obviously really good for the league. And we spent, quite a bit of time with them. So if you like Big Cat, if you like PFT, be sure to stick around. We figured we'd split it up, do all the Charger stuff here up front, and then a little bit more of the grabbing of the tuchus, if you will, with those two guys having a good time.
Yeah, it was good. It's like a 25-minute interview, so it was entertaining. That'll be up here in a bit. But as you mentioned, we interviewed Will Dissly last week, and it was an awesome conversation. I hope you guys enjoyed it. But like right after we got the news about Herbert, and it is older news now. I think everybody's processed the fact that Justin's going to be out for a couple of weeks and ramp up the play in hopes of getting ready for Week 1 against the Raiders. But I always say with Justin, like we've seen these mic'd ups with Greg Roman and Mark Trestman, and just how kind of in awe they are of how quickly he picked up the offense and just how he works, how he operates. So these 2 weeks, I'm less concerned about Justin as I am just kind of the overall chemistry with some of the guys that he is throwing to and guys that he has to work with, because this wide receivers room is new. So it's not just Justin. We saw Justin going cold in his very first game ever against the Chiefs without any reps and ripped up the Chiefs for almost 5 quarters if you count overtime. So I'm really not worried about Justin, but it is kind of a bummer that you have so many guys that are new to this offense. You have a new system, and you don't really have that time on task for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, the most to me, what I would say to people, and just don't chase it. Just nobody knows what's going on with his foot. It's not being shared. It's not being made public. So chasing down internet doctors and former players that think they know what's happening with his foot, they don't. I don't care what Chase Daniels thinks about his plant foot and how that's going to affect him and why it's a bigger deal. And I don't care what Jeff Schwartz thinks about it being a lingering injury. I just don't care. So don't, because every single person's body is different, heals differently. We don't even know the grade of the tear. If it's tear, this is super, super preventative, and it's just the start of something that hurt a little bit, and they're like, to heck with that, put the boot on and get out of the way. Or if it's severe and they're freaking out, nobody knows. And people can say I'm pandering to Coach Harbaugh and I'm just a yes man, and that's fine. But I really do appreciate, I know the beat writers don't, but I have always had issue with coaches coming out and saying, oh yeah, he's ahead of schedule. We expect him. When he's out there and he's suited up, then great, let's go. Outside of betting on games and trying to figure out if a guy's going to play or not, that's what the injury report is for, making calculated bets on contests. So, for me, it's just a little maddening to see everybody try and diagnose the injury. It could be serious. It could be very serious. It could be minor. When Week 1 rolls around, September 8th, and Justin Herbert jogs out onto that field or Easton Stick jogs out onto that field, then we can either celebrate and be excited or freak the heck out. That's kind of the way that I'm approaching it. As far as chemistry goes, I think you hit it on the head. Guy walked out there having taken all the reps with the twos the week going into the Chiefs game with Tyrod Taylor expected to play, and went out and just lit it up and completed passes downfield, completed passes underneath, scored a touchdown with his legs, and nearly got a huge victory in his first ever start. That part doesn't matter to me. It's not great. It's not ideal.
Yeah.
But, especially with the, Chark and McConkey seemingly going to be a big part of this offense. But it's something that I'm not going to focus a lot of attention on and try to dig out and track down information about how this thing's going to go, because who the heck knows?
And that goes for really all the players too. You've seen how Jim Harbaugh is running this camp. Guys are going in and out. Some guys are getting vet days off. They're coming back. You're not going to know the extent of injuries. Jim Harbaugh's made that very clear. So I think for the fans' sake too, like Money said, just take the guesswork out of it. Just enjoy training camp. Enjoy the preseason. When you get an injury update, you'll see it because the guy will or will not be on the field.
Right.
There's not going to be this, oh my gosh, it's going to be a week-to-week injury or it's a day-to-day injury. It's just not going to be discussed. So let's not freak out over seeing somebody leave or come back. And that's just what this camp is going to be like, and that's what the season's going to be like. So I actually think it's good for fans. Don't worry about it because you'll figure out once the injury report comes out and once the league mandates teams to give an injury report, you'll know whether somebody's questionable, doubtful, or probable, right?
Yeah. Look, and I say, and here we go. Now I'm going to talk out of both sides of my mouth, which I do every week on this podcast anyway. But yeah, when you have a history with Joey Bosa and you see him running off the field holding his arm, it's like, oh man, especially after wrecking that joint practice. He was the best player on the field. And then you see that and you're like, nah, come on. And when you know that Ladd McConkey slipped to the second round because of injuries, not because of performance or ability, that he's one of the best receivers in the draft, but people are a little worried about the frame and the injury history, and you see him out for, coming up on a week, you're like, oh boy. And when you see Josh Palmer grab his knee, we're conditioned. We are conditioned for these responses as Chargers fans. So I understand that completely. I'm not saying don't react and have this flat line when it comes to injuries. You can't help it. It's built into your fandom DNA if you root for the Chargers. But it is training camp. Yeah. It is the preseason.
And you're not going to get an answer. You're not going to get an answer.
So for me, when it's week one, if those guys aren't out there, then yeah, it's like, wow. We really felt good about this and this new sort of strength program going forward. And unfortunately, these guys just, it's just the way their bodies are built and they keep getting hurt. So I'm gonna think positive. I'm gonna focus on September 8th and get excited about some of these guys that are fighting for practice squad spots and fighting for, positions on the 53-man roster that we're going to be able to watch, including some starters that we're going to see some reps from, as Coach Harbaugh mentioned after practice yesterday, or a couple, I think it was yesterday. Yeah, he said, yeah, starters are going to play. Which ones? Don't know, but starters are going to play. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah. Let's work backwards a little bit. Sunday, both of us were at the Rams joint practice, and the defense shined. I think that was the story of the day. You mentioned Joey. I mean, Joey, Khalil, Bud, and Thule. Those guys, obviously, we've talked about them being the strength of the defense. But that back end, which we had some questions about, right? Zont's the number one guy you would think right now. Christian Fulton's playing lights out. Alohi is just so sound. He's a glue guy, and Derwin is Derwin. I thought that everybody really did themselves a favor on Sunday, the way they played against Matthew Stafford in that first-team offense, and as well as the Jimmy Garoppolo-led second-string offense.
Yeah, all three levels played great. You had fumbles. There's Tony Jefferson that forced the fumble. If I remember right, I think he punched it out. Is that right? Did I get that? I got it all written down. I can't remember who. Anyway, you had 2 interceptions and a forced fumble over the span of like 5 plays. And they were wrecking practice. I think I heard Sean McVay say that exactly to Joey. It's like barking at him on the field, having a good time. Joey, you're wrecking it. You're wrecking it, Joey. You're wrecking it. And Joey and Khalil against, remember now, Rams are down 3-0 linemen. So you would hope that they would dominate, but they really dominated. And that front looks great. And the interior, even more important, the run fits. Our friend Daniel Popper, when it got started in the first team, it was 1v1s. There were first 2 like run plays, just stuffed, 1 for a loss, 1 for no gain. And Popper looked at me, he's like, kind of nice to have a run defense, huh? And then what happens? 3rd and long, sack from Khalil, 3rd and long, tip, interception, 3rd and long, interception. So it's one hand washes the other, right? You got to stop the run in order to get these obvious passing downs where these pass rushers can pin their ears back and go. And we saw that in spades on Sunday. And we also saw AJ Finley out there as that third safety and Derwin moving all over the place. Saw him, in a double mug with, I think, Henley over that A-gap on a blitz that he came after Stafford and forced an incompletion. I saw him as a slot defender, saw him rush off the edge. And And that's kind of what we've been talking about this whole training camp is trying to figure out whether or not they can find someone they trust so they can really uncork Derwin to wreak havoc along with this front. And I think we saw that on display for certain on Sunday.
Yeah, one of the storylines going into preseason is going to be who's going to emerge that third safety to let Derwin do exactly what you said, Money, be all over the field. If AJ Finley can provide that, great. JT Woods, this is the most crucial 2 or 3 weeks of his NFL career, right? Like, you were drafted a couple of years ago by another general manager. You're trying to fit into this Jesse Minter defense. What can he provide over these next 3 weeks to make this team? And I look at guys like Chris Rumph, who I think has had a really nice camp too. Popper, I think, wrote about just some of the successes that Rumph has had, and we know Rumph on special teams. Can he prove to be a fifth edge rusher, make the team, obviously be a special team standout, but also provide some depth at that edge position should any of those guys go down? Those are like the types of storylines, especially when you come from an administration that drafted you and it's a brand new coaching staff. They don't owe you anything. Right. It's up to you to learn the defense, show that you're a fit, and be productive on the field. So guys like Chris Rumph and JT Woods, the next 3 weeks really going to be important for them.
Yeah, and I'll go back to, I should have probably acknowledged, you mentioned it, Christian Fulton and how important he is. And
he was awesome.
Yeah, he's been great, not just in the joint practice, but he's just been great. It's clear that he's starting to settle in to this defense and everything that's asked and all the rules and the simulated pressures and all the different coverages. Jesse Minter, like he talks about, complex but simple. As long there's rules, but when you learn the defense, they're simple enough that you can play fast. And it appears clearly that Fulton is starting to feel comfortable because he is playing fast. And he's a great player. He's a really, really good player. And, man, if they hit on that one, that was our number one concern, right, was that second outside corner. And if he can stay healthy, he's had some issues with injuries. But if you can get those two positions settled with this front, I think you're going to feel really good coming out of that week 1 preseason game. I think you're going to see those guys play. I'd be really surprised if you didn't see Asante and Christian and Ja out there, and Asante and Christian and Still out there, and mixing and matching these combinations with some starters along with the linebackers. I'm sure Dayon's going to get some run. I mean, heck, he said he wants it. He talked about that he wants them to take the leash off, let him go, let him get after these Seattle guys.
You want to see that too.
Yeah, so you're gonna. It's exciting. That was our number one question, was the secondary, when we talked about what free agents are still out there. What's the position you want to focus on? Everything has been corner secondary. So if they found AJ Finley and he can be that guy, if they found Christian Fulton and he can be that guy, you're gonna feel a lot better about this team. And I'm anxious to see what it looks like on Saturday.
A couple of weeks ago we did the fan Q&A, and there was a question about just kind of an underrated player to keep an eye on. And you can go in a variety of directions. I forget who you and I selected, but we didn't select Christian Fulton. And a fan commented, said, "Hey, what about Christian Fulton?" And he's absolutely right. Like that. Yeah. That's a guy who, if he has the season he's capable of, just how that can really flip the defense and make the defense that much better and impactful. Because just to see the juxtaposition on Sunday, like if the offense has a bad day, like this defense is capable of picking the team up on any given week. And, just to kind of transition over to the offense, when Justin Herbert's not under center, it's just going to look different. It's just going to look different right now. And that's kind of what we were talking about at the beginning, just the chemistry that he's going to have to gain with guys like Ladd and DJ Chark. We've seen it, right? Brandon Rice, Quentin. But it's going to look different. And I think this is a big preseason for Easton Stick too, to really show that he is a no doubt backup quarterback in this league starting on Saturday.
Yeah, and think about the offensive line. I would be floored if they didn't play at least a series, if not more. It's a new group. It's Bradley Bozeman, Trey Pipkins at guard, Joe All. I mean, you have 2 of the 5 that have played next to each other. The other 3 are new. You're going to want to get some reps for those guys, which means what? See how they run blocking. Which one of these guys in the backfield behind JK and Gus is going to raise their hand. Is it Jared Patterson? Is it Isaiah Spiller? Is it Kamani Vidal, who was back at practice yesterday? Like, that's what I'm excited about, is seeing this offensive line, the old 5 fingers on a glove. Are they in sync? How is Trey doing at guard? I know he just came back yesterday, so we'll see, health-wise, what the concerns might be there. But that's another thing we're going to be able to keep an eye on. Look, if they can protect Easton, then let's see them deliver. If they're able to go out there and protect and give him time to find his guys and work off of a successful run game, I think you hit it. What is his future? We know how good he is in the room. We know how much Justin appreciates him and wants him in that room, and they're connected as a quarterback room going into a game and standing on the sideline and being able to share things that he's seen, because Easton's an incredibly smart guy as well. So it's proving that, if you need me for a game, I can go in there and I can go win it. And I can play complementary football and help us win a game or two if that's what you need as the number 2. Interesting that of all the guys, we talked about the big names, but they go out and get Luis Perez, who's obviously kind of been that, to use a baseball term, 4A player, right? Mm-hmm. Much better than AAA, but has not quite been able to make it in the league, where he has dominated the Alliance of American Football, the XFL, the USFL, the UFL. Like, he's won MVPs and championships and all of that, and he ended up on the Rams for a quick minute last year. So he's the guy they end up bringing in. I think he ended up having like 10 or so dropbacks yesterday at his first practice. So we'll see whether or not he gets any run, and how they split up the reps with Max Duggan and Casey Bauman and Luis Perez, and what that backup quarterback kind of race looks like, and which one of these guys might end up on the practice squad. Yeah,
whether or not Perez plays Saturday, that's something to watch. Maybe in that second half, he gets a little bit of run at least. The running back position, do you want to see JK and Gus in a preseason game?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I think JK
absolutely I do.
Get some contact, right?
Yeah, it's like, you're going to have to play football. You're going to have to play, whether it's the idea that you keep them in bubble wrap until week 1 and something like isn't going to happen in week. Okay, well, what happens if it happens? If things go down in week 1, are you feeling any better than if it happened in a preseason game? I guess they don't count, but no, you got to get ready. It's the old, we've said it. It's the Mike Tomlin line. I don't want to go into a fight without sparring.
Yeah.
You got to take some licks. You got to feel that physicality. You got to see what you have in run blocking and on the defensive side and run fits and in pressures. So I want to see the guys play. I do. I've never been a believer in, I think you have to be physical with your players. I just do. And I think of the 2 teams that are arguably the most physical throughout training camp, and everybody knows it's the Steelers and how Mike Tomlin practices, but people may not know it's Andy Reid. And you heard what Drew Tranquil said when he got there. He's like, I was not ready for this training camp and how physical it was going to be. He's like, we get after it. And he played like a whole quarter of football. We've seen Patrick Mahomes go out there and play a quarter of football in the preseason.
And he's going to this weekend too.
He's going to, exactly. So they've won 3 of the last 4 Super Bowls, and the Steelers haven't had a losing season in 20 years. Are they doing it wrong? So I would love to see as many guys as possible get out there and play. And I actually did some digging into Harbaugh's history, and he played his guys. And it was a different time. Sean McVay is the guy that got all of this started, where you don't play any starters. But in his final season with the 49ers, Colin Kaepernick played a quarter. His starters played the full first quarter of almost every single preseason game, first, second, and third. The fourth was the one that was the throwaway. But I think there were, if I remember, there were like, of the 3, I think one of them was just a series, but the other 2 were 2-3 series for defense, offense out there. So hopefully he holds to that, and we get to see some of the dudes that we want to see.
I know, exactly. Let's dig into Seattle on Saturday on the other side of this. Oh, by the way, Saturday's practice was awesome. Kaylee Fan, she's a young Charger fan. She gave me one of these friendship bolt-up bracelets, like the Taylor Swift. So
and then you threw it away, or else it'd have been on your wrist right now.
No,
way to go! What a mean guy.
No. It's in my car. Okay, it's in my car, and I'm gonna rock it. I'll rock it this weekend, Kelly. How about that? But yeah, the fans have been fantastic. We're taping this on a Thursday, the last public training camp practice. So man, it went by in a flash though too, man. Like 2 weeks just like that. But the fans had a blast, and we had a blast seeing them.
Yeah, no doubt. I'll be up there today, and I got production meetings tonight. Like you said, I'm doing the simulcast. It won't just be radio. So DJ Dan Fouts and I will be on CBS with Jamie Maggio down on the sidelines. Shannon Farron will be down on the sidelines for the radio broadcast, but we'll simulcast it. So you'll hear us on both. And today I get to sit with Coach Harbaugh and with both, defensive, offensive coordinator Jesse Minter and Greg Roman, and kind of get an idea of what direction this thing's going to be going in. But I'm excited. There's a lot of guys that are, and this happens every year. Every single year we talk about some of these players that we think have a shot. And there's Zach Hines, the tight end, and there's Tremont Morris-Brash, the defensive end. And there's, I already mentioned him, Jarrett Patterson, the running back, who I think's been the best back behind the top two. Jalen Johnson, the wide receiver who's got sound hands. Like we obviously know the big names that we're talking about, the Brennan Rices, those sort of things. But I think when you start getting into that college free agent, there's plenty more. There's plenty, Carson Barnhart, the offensive lineman who really has flashed a little bit and has shown some versatility. So there's a lot of dudes that I'm excited to kind of get my eyes on and see how they do. We have football. We got a football game. Like, I don't care if it's preseason. Like, we are going to see, 60 minutes of football, and it's going to be awesome, regardless of what the names on the back of the jerseys are.
It's the best. It's the best. And, some of these guys, like you mentioned, like Patterson and Johnson, if they don't make the Chargers, if they flash up, they're going to get picked up. It's a big opportunity for these guys. And that's just the other kind of sidebar to this. Obviously, you want to see which Chargers are going to be successful in preseason and make the team and maybe make an impact during the regular season. But this is a great story for a lot of guys who have a dream of playing in the NFL. And if they pop on the Chargers and the Chargers are like, hey, listen, we have a million guys at wide receiver to Johnson, but he gets picked up on a practice squad. I mean, you're going to feel very good for him. And the fact that he was able to kind of make his hay in preseason with the Chargers and stay in the NFL, or a guy like Jarrett Patterson, can he make the team over an Isaiah Spiller, or they invested in a draft pick with Vidal, so it's going to be crowded, but where can these guys end up? So let's dive more into preseason on the other side of this, Money. But here is our interview with the boys from Pardon My Take, Big Cat and PFT commenter. All right, Money. Well, you never know who's going to show up at the Bolt, especially during Grit Week, right?
Right. Yeah. Grit Week at the Bolt. It's a big honor. So I think on behalf of the organization, not that they would ever want me speaking for them, I think I'm probably one of the last people. Thank you.
Thank you for your thanks. I'll also speak on behalf of the Chargers and say thank you to us, and you're welcome back to the Chargers. So I'll do it all. I'll speak for them.
Some people are calling this the house that Danny Woodhead built.
That's accurate. Yeah. Okay. I was thinking that for Grit Week, the house that Lorenzo Neal built.
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
Well, that was the thing. We're out here. We're excited. We're going to talk to Coach Harbaugh, who he has been a staple of Grit Week. He was like our second year. We did a big interview with him. People are saying, though, L.A. not really gritty, so you got to get us some grit.
Okay.
Coach Harbaugh's going to change that.
You know what?
I mean, he is grit.
Yeah, we're not saying that, but other people are saying.
Others are saying.
Other people are saying you guys are soft.
Let's set the tone.
Okay, what do we got?
What's more gritty than
donuts?
4-hour-old donuts.
Oh, okay, that is gritty.
I just got back in shape this morning.
That's fine.
He did. PFT said he's gonna get back in shape.
But here's the
thing.
thing.
Starting now, I'm healthy.
Out my Lucy.
That's right.
Hold on.
PFT, come on. We're all doing it. One bite.
Welcome to Los Angeles.
Everyone knows the rule.
Everyone knows.
What's cool is that, hey, Money, real quick, you're from Chicago. I'm from DC.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a solid match.
Yeah,
I'm a JMU grad.
Right.
Worked for the now Commanders for a couple of years, Northern Virginia area. So yeah.
Everything fell apart for the Commanders after you left.
Exactly right.
We won a playoff game. We went to another playoff game, I think, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And then you leave, and then nothing. Absolutely nothing.
I was at the game where they won in Tampa, and then I left, and then
that's it.
That's what happened.
So wait, Chicago, DC, and we're here Grit Week. Some people are saying, again, not us, but some people are saying you guys are afraid of the winter.
Well,
because you moved out here.
Yeah, I think that's fair. However,
18 years now out here.
I should have asked if I could say.
That's totally fine.
I'm sorry. I apologize.
Totally
okay,
fine.
all right.
I would say the one thing we have It's the Pacific Ocean, as you guys are going to experience tomorrow.
Yeah.
Lake Michigan's pretty big.
It is, but there are no sharks. More importantly, there's no stingrays,
Okay.
which you guys will learn tomorrow. Shuffle your feet so you don't get
Stingray
a
shuffle,
nice
yeah.
barb and a scar that looks like that because you had to have surgery to get necrosis carved out of your feet. So
Oh, my God.
we've got the wild. Essentially, it's a jungle,
Well,
but
This
it's
is
underwater.
good. This is the grit that we need.
Yeah.
We need
Yeah.
the grit.
And
Yeah.
it's a cold ocean, which I
Yes,
appreciate.
it's not Hawaii exactly.
I don't know why they named it Pacific. That's a weird name for it. But I did find a human body part in Lake Michigan like 2 weeks ago.
That's a win.
So I don't
Yeah.
know if you
That's
have that
That's
here
grit.
in LA.
That's grit.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's great.
We've had a couple drownings recently.
Okay.
So-
Okay.
I'll be on the lookout.
We
Yeah.
have an intern that I don't think he knows how to swim. So,
So
that
send him out.
might add to that list.
Well,
Exactly.
he's not sure if he knows how to swim. So I'm
He
going
asked
to take
him.
that as a no.
Place to learn.
His
The
exact,
ocean.
The
his
Pacific
exact
Ocean.
quote to me was, "I've never drowned," and I was like, "Well, yeah, neither of any of us. Like, what are you talking about?
Fair
We've
point.
all not died yet."
Yeah, fair point. So let's see. Let's give it a run. So
Yeah.
you guys are going in the ocean tomorrow, right?
Yes, we're surfing.
Okay.
We don't know how to surf.
You'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Figure it out. I don't know.
We were pretty good at wakeboarding at Lake Tahoe. So
Okay.
if that's any indication, I think we'll be strong at surfing.
Yeah.
Fine.
Yeah.
I saw you guys interview Elway at Tahoe, and I had to listen back to the original. I remember listening to the original Harbaugh interview in
Yes.
Michigan, where you guys are drinking milk, and
Yes.
and all the like we've heard all the quotables, but the one that stuck out that I have not heard yet was, "It's not hard to be a football player if you're a football player."
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, that's a Jimism that I have not
Yeah.
heard yet. Where does he rank on Grit Week guests?
He's
all time.
All time.
Yeah.
It was crazy because it was 2017. We've been doing the podcast since 2016. Now we're lucky enough that we get invited to places. That was back when we had to like scratch and claw for every interview. And I remember I was just hounding. I don't know if you guys know JT Rogan. He's a great dude. He worked for Michigan then, hounding him like, we just need 20 minutes. We need 20 minutes. Finally got the interview. We showed up. Harbaugh had been shaving and he cut himself. And so he was bleeding like profusely.
Perfect.
But it actually worked out perfect for us because we had like 10 minutes for him to stop bleeding that we got to like warm up with him. And then we did like a 45-minute hour interview. And it's like those are the moments that we look back and we're like, having him on the podcast that early on was just huge for us.
Yeah, it was actually a perfect way to meet him, to like have that delay and for him to say like, we'll do the pod after the bleeding stops.
Right.
Like that's a perfect intro to coach.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he's a great dude, all-time grit guy, all-time Grit Week guest. I'm curious, like you guys work obviously somewhat closely with him. I don't know how much you're talking to him during training camp. I don't know if that's like every day. How often does Chargers Weekly come out?
Every week.
Okay, that
Yeah,
makes sense.
every
All
week.
right, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
once a week.
are there any questions that you have for him that you've been like? Because he can be an intimidating guy.
Sure.
Any questions that you'd like to know the answers to?
'Cause we can ask anything.
without
Exactly.
burning any
Yeah.
bridges between you and coach.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that would be something
That's
that we would discuss
that's quite
after
the
we
olive
turn this
branch.
off.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
That's how we'll do that.
Yeah.
We can ask pretty much anything.
Oh, yeah.
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 You'll get the answers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He
Corner
likes
the market
us.
on asking anything.
Somehow he likes us. We went to his golf outing like maybe 5-6 years ago. Never seen anyone more disgusted. We were doing a 4-man scramble, and when we took the turn, he asked our score, and we're like, we're +5, and he's like, it's a scramble. And we're like, yeah, we're +5, and he just drove off in his golf.
Yeah.
He's like, you guys suck.
He made up the rules for the golf tournament.
Oh, this is
Yeah.
a good one. Did you hear about
he
this?
completely made up the rules. Do you remember
Yeah, so
what
I
they
remember
were?
it. So he calls it the Harbaugh.
Yeah.
All right. So this is how like he's wired, right? The competition thing. Instead of just a standard scramble, everybody gets drunk by your whatever 15, 16, 17, 18. You can barely stand anymore, and then you go to the awards banquet and you throw up or whatever. He cuts it off at 14 holes. There is a scramble winner after 14 holes. Yeah. Beginning with hole 15, everybody has to play an individual ball. All right. Holes 15 and 16, bogey or better, and you advance. Hole 17, you have to par in order to advance to 18.
That's great.
And then on the 18th, everybody's there competing against each other. And it worked out. We ended up having a 22-year-old kid make like a 60-footer for birdie.
Oh, wow.
And you would have thought that Harbaugh had like designed a new format for the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
He was so stoked and the trophy and freaking
This
out with
kid
the
may
kid.
have a roster spot. man.
Yeah.
We don't know.
Yeah.
though.
I would believe it. Yeah.
That's a good rule, though. I like that. You get a mini tournament at the end of the tournament.
Yeah.
Because
Bonus.
he's like, we got to crown it. He goes, it's all
It-
see,
But
now
that's
I'm in
him.
trouble.
He likes to just compete. That's it. Ever competed everything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Have you guys done, look, we love, obviously everybody loves the pod. It's great. We've been listening to it forever. The Mount Rushmore series is incredible. The last one was one of my favorites, the Things You Believe When You Were a Kid.
Yeah. Dumb things.
Have you done a Mount Rushmore of grit? Did I miss the Mount Rushmore of
that's
grit?
a good question. I don't know if we have.
I don't know. See, here's the problem with us is that we're getting a little older, and we just forget everything we've ever done.
Yeah.
So like I was telling them a story. Jerry Rice is here today, and I told we were like getting ready to go, and I was like, "Did you know that Julian Edelman went to junior prom with Jerry Rice's daughter?" And Hank, our producer, was like, "Yeah, he told us that story on the show." And I was just like, "Well, new to me."
And then I didn't realize that that's what they were saying. I had heard the story, but I thought Julian had told us. And then we saw Jerry Rice today, and I was like, "Big Cat, have we ever had him on the pod?"
Yeah, I was like,
"Yeah, we have.
we have." So
we're very dumb.
So the grit thing, we'll check into it. We'll have to have our crack team, our data team, look into it and see if we've done it. Which they will that up. I don't know if I can swear, but they will look for it. We'll do the thing, and then everyone will be like, "You did this 2 years ago."
What was the biggest difference in interviewing Jim versus John? Well, John had the epic story about the drowning, right?
Yes.
Yes.
But were they like the same?
No,
very different.
They were very, very different people. John was like, I don't know, he was like joking around. Jim started to joke around too a little bit with us, but you had to like break that ice, and he wants to talk about some serious things. But John was, I think, like way more lighthearted in the interview than Jim was initially, but like at the same time, we kind of like, I don't know, the Jim Harbaugh interview stands out as a very, very memorable one, especially that first time. John was great and he was a friendly guy, but like if I'm going to have to pick which one was a better interview, it's Jim.
John is Jim with like 25% more human. That's pretty much what it is.
Sounds about right.
Like Jim is like 50% human, 50% just a football, and then John is more like 75% human, 25% just a football.
Yeah.
So was Vanny Woodhead, when you guys were doing that, was that kind of grit week stuff, or was that
Yes.
So that's what it was.
Yeah.
So how do you, because that to me symbolized grit, like,
Yeah.
hey, we're in the back of a conversion van,
Yeah.
and we're going to squeeze this dude in the middle of us, and everyone's going to be uncomfortable, and it's grit.
Yeah.
It's obviously evolved. It's become quite the production. Do you guys still embrace like a grit lifestyle? Like, are you staying in a roadside motel where there's crackheads and things like that in the parking lot?
Jim stayed in an RV.
Yeah, we have an RV we're going to stay in.
Okay, perfect.
I would say maybe people would be like, oh, maybe you got a little Hollywood. Maybe not as gritty as the first couple of years, but that's also because we've gotten a lot bigger.
Right.
So we have there's like 10 of us now rolling around, where at the beginning it was literally 3 or 4 of us. I would say the grit stays in just how hard we work. We love our job, and we just work really, really hard because we love doing it.
Right.
So that would be the grit part.
Yeah, I do miss some of the like DIY aspect of it. That was fun, and also having the guests be a little bit uncomfortable. It stood out. It made them it took them out of
Squeezing
their
them in,
pattern that they're in when they're talking to media. So when like Bob Stoops is next to us in the back seat, he's like, "What the hell am I doing back here?"
Yeah, his popping
Yeah.
too.
Can we say on this
Yeah,
podcast?
he had
They're all tangled.
little short shorts.
Yeah.
Yeah, bad angle.
But what I don't miss about the DIY aspect is like we were driving back from Youngstown, Ohio, and we got a flat tire.
Four.
All
All 4 wheels blew out.
And
170 on the highway.
A spike strip.
How
do you blow out 4 tires?
I'll tell you how. We bought a conversion van for $400.
Yeah,
We
that's
we
why.
got a
That's
great
why
deal.
that happened.
So being stuck on the side of a random highway in Ohio with a drunk Billy football that we have to tend to and make sure he doesn't wander out into traffic. Literally make sure he doesn't go onto the highway. That part I don't miss.
Right.
But there are some elements where it was like, sometimes when you're figuring everything out on the go, you don't have all the resources. That can be fun too.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, like obviously things changed. We've gotten bigger. We've had more success, but we just love football. We love sports, and that stays consistent. Like I think having more staff or having nicer accommodations, that doesn't change the product. It would be like if we stopped watching the games, if we stopped loving the sports, that would change the product. And people would be like, what are you guys doing?
I think it's like this Chargers team. They're a gritty team, but look at this place.
I know.
You guys just walk in. This is like, it's probably the best NFL facility to date. And my question for you guys is just, what do you think of the Chargers? Like going into this, Jim Harbaugh, Justin Herbert, Ben Herbert, a Wisconsin guy
Badger,
too.
Yep.
What do you think that this team's going to do this year and maybe over the next couple of years?
That's a good question. I think Harbaugh was a home run hire.
Yeah.
I think it's exactly what the team needs. And having a guy like that, bringing in his own strength guy, I feel like you can overcome the niceness of having a new facility. So like we were talking to Joe Mazzulla the other day, and he was saying that sometimes he looks around his house, he's like, this is a little bit too nice, I want to put a hole in the wall. So he's like convincing his wife to let him damage his house a little bit. Harbaugh, I would not I would not be surprised if he did something along like we need to make this room more working class. But I think he's a home run hire. I think that everywhere he's been, he's had success.
Yeah.
Like, you can just look at his track record and know that what he does works.
Yeah,
So I think the Chargers they've definitely got a huge amount of upside.
Yeah, it's like, I would say next 5 years, at least bare minimum AFC Championship game. That's just what Harbaugh does. He just wins. And so you guys will be – I have a – Chargers as a franchise are interesting. I have a soft spot because I think the last time I ever won a fantasy football league was when I had LT in 06.
Yeah.
And your colors are cool.
Yeah.
That helps a lot. But there's a little bit of curse around here that maybe hopefully this changes it with the new facility in Harbaugh.
Have we thought about bringing Boltman back?
We kind of have a
Boltman.
pseudo Boltman.
I saw him last Saturday. He was here last Saturday.
He was here last Saturday. That's what I mean.
Was he
was.
the original Boltman?
No, he's not the original.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's not the
Because
original.
the original at the City Hall is one of the greatest pictures of all time.
He's the most civically minded mascot I've ever seen. Yeah.
It really
is.
The one thing we constantly hear from fans is they feel as though there's Herbert slander out there, that there's Justin Herbert slander.
There is.
That's how
So where do you come out on the Herbert slander? Do you subscribe to it, or
he's
what
like
do you think?
a perfect product. The discourse around Herbert is a perfect product of the internet.
Yes,
he's
exactly.
a great quarterback, and then you get people talking about what a great quarterback he is, and then people hear all this hype, and then when he doesn't win 3 Super Bowls, they're like, this guy's overrated, and then they go. It's like a backlash to the takes that they're hearing. I think he's a very good quarterback.
Yeah.
If Jaden Daniels for the Commanders turns out to be as good as Justin Herbert, I will be so excited.
Yeah, things are good, right?
That would be the best thing that I've ever experienced as a Commanders fan.
Right. There was, obviously I'm all in on Caleb Williams, but there was a rumor maybe started by me that the Bears were going to trade the number 1 pick for Justin Herbert.
I remember that.
Yeah, and everyone's like, that's crazy. The Chargers would never do that. I'm like, yeah, that's the point. Like Justin Herbert's, he's shown that he can do it. But yeah, it's weird. I think if you called, I don't know, 24 teams, 22 teams, they would take him in a second. There's probably only like 5 or 6 guys ahead of him, but not having that like signature playoff run is everyone. I mean, Lamar deals with it.
Yeah.
Lamar's won 2 MVPs.
The thing is, he's had like 5 different offensive coordinators, maybe even dating back to Oregon. It's like he has to learn a new offense every year. And, some of the mic'd ups with Greg Roman have been awesome. Just like, dude, I don't know how he's learned this offense so quickly.
Right.
So
right.
like,
The changeover. And then, and we talk about it on our show, like Patrick Mahomes he's a thief of joy. It's the same thing that happened with Tom Brady, where it's like when you have a force like that in the league, everyone else gets viewed differently. It's like, but that's not really like, yeah, he's not Patrick Mahomes. That doesn't mean he's not incredible.
Yeah.
There's only one Patrick Mahomes.
Just going to Caleb, we're in LA, and
I want to hear.
It was a weird time because he's coming from Oklahoma and Lincoln's here, and everyone's kind of excited, but they still didn't live up to expectations. And then the following year was so bad that there was kind of like this pushback. It was just a really odd stay for a guy that won the Heisman Trophy at USC, a powerful head coach that had finally replaced like all these years post Pete Carroll of them just kind of having their head up their ass. And yet it wasn't really embraced. It was a really weird time.
Yeah.
And so like as someone who, I was born and raised, I've lived here for 33 years, so I barely even remember Chicago, but like a mediocre quarterback. I can remember being excited about Rex Grossman and Kyle Orton.
Yes.
Like, dude,
Jay Cutler, baby.
Caleb Haney.
Yeah.
You see the way he runs around?
Caleb
Okay,
Haney,
all right, he's going to get you a couple 2-tree playoff. People get excited.
Yes.
So, like, I can only imagine.
Oh, the hype
It's
is
got to
crazy.
be insane.
It's insane. And I try to remind myself the thing that sucks for Caleb Williams is it's not his fault. He was the number 1 pick for 2 years. So you spend 2 years of the media essentially trying to poke holes in him and be like, well, he does this and he does that. And it's like, just let him go play football. And I think he's, from everything I've heard, he's like the leader that you want. And you guys saw it firsthand, some of the interactions he had with his, teammates and like sharing awards and all that stuff. So yeah, I'm pumped.
Their defense was so bad at SC.
Yeah.
I mean, he had to bail them out so much, and one of his weapons we know very well, Keenan Allen. I mean, he's one of the best route runners in the league. You have a Dunze, you have DJ Moore who got paid, so like he has an embarrassment of riches on the outside. Gerald Everett, who was here last year too.
Yeah.
Great guy.
So
Gerald Everett's a beast.
It's set up for them. Their defense is pretty good.
Yeah, that's the thing is it's set up better than any Bears quarterback has ever walked into. So if it doesn't work this time, it might be over for everyone.
When the coaching hire cycle was going around, I would assume that you both wanted Harbaugh, that you were both pushing hard for Harbaugh to be the Commanders, to be the.
No, I always had Dan Quinn 1.
Oh, you did?
One.
That way he was 1. Yeah.
1. He was
so
my
not
first
even
choice.
1A, 1B?
No,
just...
1, and then Harbaugh was like 2, distant 2.
Yeah.
But
the Brotherhood was coming to DC.
He's a great coach. So of course, I think any team should have wanted Harbaugh.
Yeah, I'm Matt Eberflus is my guy. He's our coach. And anyone who says that I might have texted Coach Harbaugh a hype video of him in his Bears highlights being like, come back home. Yeah, that was true. I did that.
He probably just saw the come back home part and then remembered about being a Chargers quarterback. And he probably didn't watch the video, and he was like,
I got
that's a good point, Big Cat.
Yeah,
I will come back.
Oh, nice.
I was basically recruiting him. It's a very emotional video.
Are you doing the VO? Is there narration?
No,
it's narration.
Is it McConaughey?
It's stupid. Yeah, it's McConaughey.
It's McConaughey.
Yeah, watch. I'll play a little before you. Look at this. Tell me you don't. I mean, I can't believe he didn't take me up on it.
Sometimes you gotta go back.
It's a great video. Yeah. So it gets you pumped up. He said, "Thanks, cool. All glory to God. Sure do value our football and family relationships. And good times, cherish them. Thanks for caring and supporting. There are enough doubters and haters in the world. Much respect and gratitude for you and yours, Jim." So basically, like, cool, but I'm sorry. Nicest way to say, like,
cool
dude,
video, bro.
That does nothing for me.
That's basically what it was.
I took my shot.
I watched the interview again from like 7 years ago, and I saw the Chargers helmet in the corner of his office, and I was just like, man, this is like a foreshadowing of what's gonna be.
Well, that's the beauty. Like, the Chargers are taking, it's not a risk because Jim Harbaugh is not a risk, but when you bring in a guy like Jim Harbaugh, he runs the show. And I think that there's dysfunctional franchises, maybe the two of ours, the Commanders and Bears, where ownership doesn't want to have someone come in and run the show. They don't want to have this force of personality. So credit to the Chargers because they're like, when you bring in Jim Harbaugh,
it's his.
It's his.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if the owner, GM, whatever. It's Jim Harbaugh's team, and that's that means you're ready to win, though. That means you're focused on winning because that's what he's going to do.
So all these years of being in the business and doing it, like, you guys are still hardcore fans. Like, you don't want to watch, you don't want to read the paper. Nobody reads the paper. You don't want to watch TV after a loss on Sunday.
No. Monday's tough.
It's still that strong inside you.
Yeah, fortunately, like Big Cat, I guess, being a Chicago guy, like Chicago, the media is very big there. So even if the Bears aren't that good, sometimes they get talked about. For me, at least, my only thing was if we lose on Sunday, nobody's going to talk about the Commanders on Monday anyways, unless we got beat by the Cowboys,
Yeah.
And then we'll talk about that game. We'll show the highlights. So, but yeah, we do still very much care deeply about our teams because, like, that's why we became sports fans, right?
And we're actually a little nervous that, like, the podcast, we've been doing it for 8+ years, and we've never, like, I had 2018. The Commanders have had, like, blips. If our teams are good, I don't know if people want to listen anymore. So we're a little nervous.
It could happen this year.
Like, we're losers, and people like to see us lose.
Yeah, you don't want it to be like a Bill Simmons Celtics.
Yeah.
Right, so we might be screwed.
Farting rainbows.
Like I don't know what
we have Hank on the podcast, and his, like, the big thing that he does is he wins a lot, and then we just shit on him.
Right.
Which is, like, kind of how we handle that.
So
and
we
I think
start winning.
If you look at all the sports fans in America, 95% of them are losers.
Right.
Just like us.
Much more relatable.
We don't want to alienate our audience.
Right. I hopefully, well, it's not going to happen. We keep telling ourselves, like, what happens if both of our quarterbacks are just awesome?
No, they're going to be great.
I mean,
yeah,
the odds are we're both.
I'm just thinking about that. Like 1-2, like that's kind of wild. Do you think Jaden will be better than Caleb?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I disagree.
I firmly believe that. He's going to be. I don't think he's going to be that much better than.
He's
Jaden.
from out here. He's from San Bernardino.
Yeah. So what's the book on him? What was he like?
He's
in
got
high
a field
school?
named after him. Here.
Super skinny.
El Cajon,
like ridiculously skinny at Arizona State, and took him a while, but you find the right place, and all of a sudden it just clicks, and that seems to be what LSU was for him. But I think it's. Try not to get him busted in half.
Well,
we don't have a great track record.
If he slides like Robert did, then we got problems.
Yeah, so I love the training camp stories that come out every year, and it seems like we go through the same, like, 3 or 4 stories that get rehashed all the time. And this year, the Jaden Daniels has consulted with the Washington Nationals on how to slide story.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Came out really early.
Oh, no.
And it's like, let's wait until we at least see something in the game. And then also there's other people that can teach you how to slide besides a professional baseball team, right?
Exactly.
But yeah, like I alluded to, we don't have a great track record in DC with mobile quarterbacks.
And the odds aren't in our favor when you like look at first round quarterbacks. Like it's usually about 50% or bust. So we're really rooting hard against like Bo Nix and Michael Penix and JJ McCarthy.
Fair point.
It's crazy. But you look at that 2020 class, you had Burrow, Herbert, and Tua.
Yeah.
All got paid. The first 3 guys off the board. So maybe this class will be similar.
Yeah.
I hope so.
Let's hope.
Except I hope Drake May stinks.
Yeah.
I don't,
First two, okay?
Patriots
That's
don't,
what's going to
they don't
happen.
need anything else.
Drake May is going to be the best one of these
And
guys.
the Patriots will go
We
on
all
a
know
decade
that.
run.
Yeah.
You guys have been great. I don't want to keep you much longer, but I guess just to wrap it up on Grit Week, like is Grit, you guys don't wear sunscreen and get the crap cooked out of you and like you go home with the gnarliest sunburn? I'm trying to figure out how we can make this a little bit rougher of a spot since you're staying in the South Bay.
Yeah.
We'll figure out some ways to get gritty this week.
It's
sure.
football though. Like Grit Week is obviously we talk about Grit Week, but it's really football's back. Okay. So just being at training camps, we're going to go to 3 different camps. That's grit.
It's not packing a tin of Kopi and throwing up.
We'll see.
We could do that.
We might do that. We might have to do the milk mile again.
Yeah. I think we actually are going for LA. We are going on Tuesday. Muss, we're good friends with Muss. He's going to run us through a workout.
Oh, nice.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
So that will be
the best.
He's going to kick our ass.
Yes, he is.
And that will be very, very high grit.
All right. There we
Listen,
go.
I tell you what, we're like the unofficial start to Grit Week. You know, like the invisible start to Grit Week. So we appreciate you guys being on Chargers Weekly.
So that was a treat. The beginning of Grit Week started in El Segundo, and it started with an interview with Chargers Weekly. How about that?
Appreciate those guys, and highly recommend Pardon My Take. It's a fun pod. Listen to it, subscribe to it. So I'm in, and it was great that they gave us that much of their time, and even really a lot more than that. So good luck to those guys for the remainder of Grit Week. I know they spent it out here in LA. I have not had a chance to hear how all of their adventures have gone completely. Been a little bit busy with the radio show and getting ready for this game and all that, but I'm sure I'll catch up and find out how the Pacific Ocean treated them and whether or not it was gritty enough.
I saw they were with Musselman at the Galen Center. Doing wind sprints or something.
Right, throwing up in a trash can, I'm sure.
Yeah, exactly.
We love Muss. He's awesome. But yeah, we got football. I mean, we got football on Saturday, and now we have football every Saturday but 2, beginning this week. So outside of Labor Day weekend, and I think it's the 5th of October. Outside of that, we're good. We have got a football game for you once a week from the Chargers all the way through the first week of January. It's fantastic. It's finally arrived.
It can't get any better. We talked about a lot of the individual guys and performances we want to see individually, but just overarching, I want to see what this offense and defense looks like, right? We talk about the physicality, the running the football, getting after the quarterback on defense, what Jesse Minter's scheme is going to look like. And obviously it's going to be very vanilla on both sides, but you can at least see like the identity of a football team. This is the first step to that.
Yeah, and I, like I said, I enjoy watching the back end of the roster and watching it come together. You know, you mentioned these guys getting picked up, but I was actually, when you were talking earlier, I was kind of going through the archive dates and I was just kind of checking the practice squad. And when you go to last year's practice squad, you know, what do you see? Christian Covington, who had an impact on the team. Alex Erickson, think about the big catches that he made. Ty Shelby as an edge rusher, you know, made some plays. We had Xander Horvath, you know, who had a couple touchdown catches as a fullback practice squad player. Christopher Hinton, who had to come in and become a starting interior defensive tackle by the end of the year. So, like, there's players out there and on the practice squad that are going to have an impact on this team. So it's just kind of like a way for you to almost build the breadth of your knowledge when it comes to the Chargers roster and try to figure out who these, you know, who are the players that you should be paying attention to, right? Who are the ones that flash? And that's something that Jesse Minter said is, you know, you never know. Football's a weird sport and you never know who's going to pop here in the preseason, but he said someone's gonna, because it happens every single year for every single team. Someone just, they're like, oh, wow, I know that guy had that going, you know, and it could be something as, you know, for the folks that pay attention to the skill positions, like I said, as boring as Carson Barnhart. But now you've got depth on your offensive line. You feel really good about that going into a season where it's hard to keep all 5 guys healthy for all 17 games. It rarely happens. So it's like, it's something that's Cam Hart, the raw tools of Cam Hart, and whether or not these coaches are able to begin to develop this guy who is incredibly raw, but just crazy measurables and athleticism. And if they can figure that out, you want to talk about cracking a code. This dude is, you're talking about like Tariq Woolen level speed, height, range, length, all that. And if they can then get those cornerback instincts and abilities into him, that's going to be an incredible find. And he's been running with the 2s. So there's plenty of guys. I don't mean to make it like a name salad. I don't want to do that, but
no,
there's plenty of dudes that are going to be out there, even though Justin Herbert is hurt. I mentioned Zach Hines, 6'7", 260-pound tight end that I think's got a real shot to make this 53-man roster.
Yeah, you know what? It's not a name salad because these are guys who we could be talking about in week 7 of the regular season. It's just what it is. Like Jasir Taylor looks like to be locked in at nickel as of this moment. Tarheeb Still is a guy who they drafted. I want to see what he looks like. How has he developed throughout the first 2 weeks of training camp, and can he make an impact and kind of continue to elevate and stack bricks? It's preseason, and I always loved looking at storylines and things kind of off the field. I think that the fact that Mike Macdonald is the head coach is pretty cool.
That's great.
Because Minter and Macdonald, obviously, they work together. Macdonald was the defensive coordinator at Michigan. So you're going to see probably a lot of similarities defensively with what Macdonald and Minter do. And that kind of chess match with some of these backup players, at least is kind of fun. Plus, Coach Harbaugh's son is a special teams coordinator, if I'm not mistaken, for Seattle.
He is.
Too, right? So
yeah, he is.
It's a little bit of a family reunion at SoFi on Saturday.
Yeah, it's going to be great. If you can make it out, make it out. If you don't have tickets, I'd say you can track them down.
Yeah.
Go ahead, look at the various ways you can get them, and I would imagine it's a great opportunity for you to get into SoFi to watch a bunch of guys play football and have a good time. It's a Saturday afternoon. It's not too late. It's not too early. It's kind of in that sweet spot at 4:00, and I'm really looking forward to it. I'm excited to do it on TV. I'm excited to do it again like we did last year up in San Francisco with Dan Fouts and DJ. It's a great watch and listen. So if you're driving around and you want to get it on the radio, you'll get it. If you're at home and you can get it on the TV, get it. It was really fun and insightful, and DJ and Dan had an incredible chemistry with each other. And if nothing else, you're going to want to watch essentially 3 hours of them just talking football, because you could tell they really enjoyed each other bouncing things off about what they see and what it was and what it is and where it's going. And, we all think of Dan Fouts as, one of the greatest quarterbacks and one of the greatest Chargers in franchise history. But I think we also forget that this was the number 1 analyst in college football for a long time, and someone that, was the voice with Keith Jackson of that game, and was able to watch players developing and recognize which ones were going to take the next step and what those traits were. And you could just see that rekindled, and I could hear that rekindled in Dan last year when we did the game, and he and DJ were able to kind of watch the game through that same lens, and how exciting that was for Dan Fouts to be able to do it with him was really cool, just to be, a guy that was in the middle, literally in the middle of the two of them, hearing them have those conversations. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah, you got the best of the best and Matt Money Smith on television on Saturday as well. And just 2 refreshing analysts, man. Like Dan pulls no punches, and DJ is as insightful as it gets. Like you said, Shannon on radio, you got Jamie Maggio on the sideline, and we have Bolt Central pregame show at 3:30, so a half hour ahead of the game with Jim Hill, Jalil Adai, and myself, and then we'll do a postgame show afterwards as well. So a ton of Chargers football on the air on Saturday. So as Money mentioned, if you're not going to be at the game, next best thing, pop on the tube and watch us.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it.
Absolutely. All right. Well, guys, enjoy Saturday, whether you're at SoFi or you're watching on television. We will break down what we saw next week ahead of a big one against the Rams at SoFi in week 2. But until then, enjoy some Chargers football. For Matt Money Smith, I'm Chris Hayre. This has been Chargers Weekly.